Everyone, thank you for being here today. We live in a world that moves fast. Every day, we face stress, pressure, and uncertainty. From unexpected traffic to difficult conversations, life throws challenges at us without warning. Here's the truth. You can't control every situation, but you can control how you respond. And that's the power of a calm mind. Training your mind to be calm doesn't mean avoiding emotions or becoming indifferent. It means learning how to manage your thoughts, reactions, and energy in a way that serves your well-being and success. Think of your mind as a muscle. Just like you train your body in the gym, your mind needs regular training to stay strong, balanced, and centered. Calmness is not weakness. In fact, it is a sign of inner strength. When you remain calm, you make better decisions, build stronger relationships, face life's storms with resilience. So how do we do it? It starts with awareness. Notice your thoughts, understand your triggers, and practice responding instead of reacting. Techniques like deep breathing, mindfulness, meditation, and gratitude can rewire your brain to choose peace over panic. Remember this, you are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts. And once you realize that, you gain the power to rise above the noise. A calm mind is a focused mind. A focused mind is a powerful mind. And a powerful mind can transform not just your life, but the lives of everyone around you. Train your mind not just for peace, but for power. Calmness is not something that simply happens to us. It is a decision we make consciously or unconsciously in every moment of challenge, pressure, or uncertainty. While we may not have control over external events, we always have control over our inner response. Life will test you. It will surprise you with sudden changes, failures, disappointments, or even success that comes too fast. But the way you respond, whether with panic or with peace, comes down to the mindset you've built and the choices you make in that critical moment. Choosing calmness doesn't mean you suppress emotions or pretend to be unaffected. It means you allow yourself to feel, but you do not let those feelings dictate your actions. You step back, breathe, assess the situation, and choose a response that reflects clarity, not chaos. You resist the urge to react impulsively and instead act with intention. This is not about ignoring problems. It's about facing them with presence and perspective. Many people believe that calmness is a personality trait. You either have it or you don't. But that's not true. Calmness is a skill. And like any skill, it can be developed. The first step is realizing that you are the gatekeeper of your emotional state. You have the power to pause. You have the power to reset. You have the power to think before you speak, to breathe before you act, and to anchor yourself in peace even when the world around you is in chaos. When you embrace calmness as a choice, you begin to take responsibility for your own state of being. Stop blaming others for how you feel and start empowering yourself to create stability from within. This shift in perspective is life-changing. Because once you understand that your peace is in your hands, nothing and no one can take it away from you without your permission. Calmness, then, is not about the absence of storms. It's about finding peace in the middle of them. And that peace comes from the simple yet powerful decision to choose calm over chaos, stillness over stress, and strength over reaction. Think of your mind as you would any other muscle in your body. It becomes stronger, more resilient. The more efficient, the more you train it. Just like you wouldn't expect to lift heavy weights without gradually building strength through consistent effort, you can't expect your mind to stay calm and clear in high-pressure situations without regular mental conditioning. Calmness, focus, emotional control. These are not traits we are simply born with. They are cultivated through practice, discipline, and awareness. When you go to the gym, you lift weights or run on a treadmill to improve your physical fitness. In the same way, you can engage in mental workouts to enhance your psychological fitness. Practices such as meditation, mindfulness, journaling, deep breathing, and focused reflection are exercises for the brain. These techniques may seem simple on the surface, but done consistently, they reshape how the brain responds to stress. They strengthen the neural pathways associated with patience, clarity, and emotional balance. This concept is supported by neuroscience. Studies in neuroplasticity show that the brain is not fixed. It changes and adapts with experience and repetition. The more you train your mind to respond to stress with calm, the more automatic that response becomes. Like your muscles remember the motions of lifting weights, your brain starts to remember calmness. It becomes your default state rather than something you have to struggle to find. And here's the truth. Your mind is always in training, whether you realize it or not. Every time you react with panic, every time you give in to anger, every time you let worry spiral, you're reinforcing those patterns. But the opposite is also true. Every time you take a breath before responding, every time you choose to step back instead of lashing out, you're building mental strength. You wouldn't expect physical health without proper nutrition, rest, and exercise. Similarly, you can't expect mental strength if your mind is constantly overwhelmed, distracted, or neglected. You must feed it with positivity, rest it with silence, and challenge it with discipline. Training your mind is not about escaping reality. It's about sharpening your mental tools so that when reality hits hard, and it will, you're ready. You don't fall apart under pressure. You don't drown in chaos. You rise above it, not because life got easier, but because your mind got stronger. True strength isn't always loud. It doesn't always show itself in physical dominance, high status, or being the smartest person in the room. Sometimes, strongest person is the one who remains silent during chaos, composed during conflict, and steady during a storm. Emotional control is not about ignoring your emotions or pretending they don't exist. It's about recognizing them, understanding them, and choosing not to be ruled by them. When you can remain calm in a moment of anger, you are displaying power. When you can resist the urge to lash out, to speak harshly, or to make impulsive decisions, you are demonstrating strength that goes far deeper than what meets the eye. Emotional control means being able to sit with discomfort, frustration, fear, or sadness without letting those emotions take over your behavior. Inner strength doesn't happen overnight. It comes from self-awareness and self-discipline. It comes from facing your own emotions honestly and learning how to respond rather than react. Reactions are automatic. They come from old patterns and habits. Responses, on the other hand, are thoughtful and intentional. When you choose to respond instead of react, you create space between stimulus and action. In that space lies your power. In a world where people are quick to anger, quick to judge, and quick to break under pressure, the ability to remain centered is a rare and admirable quality. Emotional control gives you clarity. It gives you the ability to think rationally when emotions are clouding everyone else's judgment. It helps you see beyond the immediate emotion and consider the long-term impact of your words and actions. Also strengthens relationships. When you have control over your emotions, you're less likely to say things you'll regret. You're more likely to listen, to empathize, and to respond with understanding. This builds trust, creates a sense of safety for others around you. People feel drawn to those who bring stability in a world full of chaos. Moreover, emotional control is not about suppressing emotions, it's about regulating them. It means knowing when to express, how to express, and when to pause. There's great wisdom in taking a moment of silence when you're emotionally overwhelmed. That pause can save relationships, protect reputations, and preserve peace of mind. Every time you remain calm when you could have exploded, every time you choose patience when you're being tested, every time you hold your ground with grace instead of aggression, you grow stronger. You reinforce the message to yourself that you are in charge of your emotions, not the other way around. Emotional control is the foundation of emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence is one of the greatest assets in both personal and professional life. When you master your emotions, you master yourself. And when you master yourself, there is very little in life that can truly defeat you. Before any real transformation can begin, whether it's mental, emotional, or spiritual, it starts with one fundamental element: awareness. Without awareness, we are simply reacting to life, not consciously living it. We become prisoners of habit, emotion, and circumstance, tossed around by every challenge that comes our way. But the moment you become aware, truly aware of what's happening inside your mind, you reclaim your power. Awareness means paying attention, not just to what's happening around you, but to what's happening within you. It's the ability to observe your thoughts, notice your emotional responses, and recognize your behavioral patterns without instantly acting on them. It's stepping back from the noise in your mind long enough to ask, why am I feeling this way? What triggered this reaction? What am I about to do? And is it the right thing? This process doesn't come naturally at first. Most people move through life on autopilot. They experience stress and lash out. They feel anxious and shut down. They get offended and retaliate. Little to no pause between the stimulus and the reaction. But when you begin to practice awareness, you insert that crucial pause. And in that pause is where your growth begins. Awareness is not about judgment, about observation. It's not about labeling thoughts or emotions as good or bad. It's about noticing them for what they are, temporary, shifting, and often not entirely true. You may feel like you're in danger when you're not. You may think someone is against you when they're not. Without awareness, your mind convinces you of all kinds of things. With awareness, you gain the clarity to see those thoughts for what they are, just thoughts, not facts. Once you're aware of your triggers, those specific situations, words, or behaviors that spark a strong emotional reaction, you can begin to prepare for them. You learn to anticipate your inner responses. You notice the tension rising in your body. You hear the mental narrative starting to build, and instead of being swept away by it, you recognize it and choose a different path. This awareness becomes your inner compass. It guides you through conflict. It helps you manage stress, and it gives you the strength to stay centered even when your emotions are pushing you off balance. In fact, the greater your awareness, the less control your emotions have over you. Moreover, awareness creates space for change. You can't change what you don't recognize. You can't break free from negative patterns if you're not even aware that they exist. The moment you become aware of your reactions, your thoughts, your emotional loops, you begin to unlock the power to reshape them. This is why awareness is not just the first step, it's the foundation. Every other tool for calmness, from mindfulness to emotional regulation, built on your ability to observe yourself honestly. Awareness invites responsibility. And with responsibility comes the opportunity to live with intention, rather than by default. In today's world of constant stimulation, ending to-do lists and overwhelming noise, both outside and inside the mind, finding calm can feel almost impossible. But there is a powerful antidote, one that has been practiced for thousands of years and is now backed by science, mindfulness, and meditation. These are not just trendy buzzwords or abstract spiritual ideas. They are practical, accessible tools that have the power to transform the way your mind functions. Mindfulness is the practice of bringing your full attention to the present moment. It is the art of noticing, without judgment, what is happening right now, your thoughts, your emotions, your physical sensations, and the environment around you. So much of our stress and anxiety comes not from the present, but from being trapped in thoughts about the past or fears about the future. Mindfulness cuts through that cycle. It anchors you in what is real, not imagined, not exaggerated, not anticipated, just now. Meditation, on the other hand, is the deliberate training of your mind. It's the gym for your inner world. When you meditate, you are not trying to stop your thoughts. You are learning how to observe them without getting pulled into them. You're strengthening your ability to focus, to return your attention to your breath or a mantra. Stay still in a world that is constantly pushing you to move. Over time, this rewires your brain. Studies show that regular meditation reduces the size of the amygdala, the part of the brain responsible for fear and stress, and strengthens the prefrontal cortex, which governs reasoning, decision-making, and emotional control. Together, mindfulness and meditation build resilience. They create a buffer between you and your automatic reactions. You start to notice your triggers sooner. You develop the ability to pause before reacting. And most importantly, you become more grounded. You are no longer a leaf blowing in the emotional wind. You become the tree, deeply rooted, no matter how strong the storm. Many people avoid these practices because they think they don't have time, or they believe they need to be good at it right away. But the truth is, mindfulness and meditation are practices, not performances. You don't need to sit for hours a day to benefit. Even 5 minutes of quiet observation can shift your entire mindset. You don't need to have a blank mind. You just need to be present. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to show up. The effects are subtle at first. Over time, they compound. You begin to notice that you don't get as easily rattled, that you can hear bad news without spiraling, that you can feel anxious without letting it control you. You can create space in your day to just be without chasing, grasping, or resisting. And that space is where peace lives. Mindfulness and meditation teach you the power of now. They remind you that calm isn't something to search for outside. It's something you cultivate from within. Every breath, every moment of stillness, every time you close your eyes and tune in rather than zone out, you are training your mind to return to calm again and again until it becomes your default, not your escape. Sometimes the most powerful tool we have to restore calm is also the simplest, the breath. It's always with us, costs nothing. And yet, few people realize just how transformative deep, conscious breathing can be, not just mentally, but physically. The breath is a bridge between the body and the mind, the one function that we can control voluntarily, even though it operates automatically. This makes it a direct key to influencing our emotional state and calming the chaos within. When we are stressed, anxious, angry, or overwhelmed, our breathing changes. It becomes shallow, rapid, and uneven. This signals to the body that we are in danger, triggering the sympathetic nervous system, also known as the fight or flight response. Heart rate increases. Tense, the mind races. This response is designed for survival, but in modern life, we often activate it unnecessarily over an email, a social media post, or a traffic jam. The body reacts as if we're being chased by a predator, when in fact we're simply facing a challenge that requires clarity, not panic. Deep breathing works like a natural switch. When you intentionally slow your breath, especially your exhalation, you activate the parasympathetic nervous system, often called the rest and digest mode. This calms the heart rate, lowers blood pressure, relaxes the muscles, and sends a signal to the brain that you are safe. Your body no longer feels under attack, and your mind begins to follow. You start to think more clearly, feel more grounded, and regain control over your emotions. But the benefits of deep breathing go beyond just managing stress in the moment. With regular practice, deep breathing becomes a habit, a natural response to pressure rather than panic. Trains your body to stay regulated even in intense situations. Athletes use it before competition. Surgeons use it before procedures. Speakers use it before stepping on stage. And you can use it in everyday life. To calm your nerves before a meeting, to manage conflict without exploding, or to anchor yourself during moments of grief or confusion. There are specific techniques you can use, such as box breathing, where you inhale for 4 counts, hold for 4, exhale for 4, and hold again for 4. Or the 4-7-8 method, which involves inhaling for 4 seconds, holding for 7, exhaling for 8. These patterns not only help you focus, but create a rhythm that your body begins to associate with safety and calm. Over time, just beginning the breath can trigger a relaxation response. Perhaps, most importantly, deep breathing returns you to the present moment. It draws your awareness out of the mind's endless chatter and into the body. It reminds you that you are here, right now. That whatever you're facing, you are breathing through it, and therefore surviving it. Each breath becomes an act of grounding, of reclaiming peace in a world that constantly pulls you away from it. When you realize that your breath is a tool, not just for survival, but for mastery, you begin to use it differently. You begin to respect its power, and you begin to see that within your own body lies one of the most effective methods for staying calm, focused, and in control, no matter what life throws at you. One of the greatest sources of stress, anxiety, and emotional turmoil is the human tendency to try to control everything. People, outcomes, situations, timelines, even the way others think or behave. But the reality is, much of life exists outside the scope of our control. The weather, other people's actions, unforeseen events, delays, disappointments, all of these lie beyond our command. And yet we exhaust ourselves emotionally by fighting them, by wishing things were different, by clinging to expectations that are constantly threatened by reality. This is where the concept of detachment becomes essential, not as an act of indifference, but as an act of wisdom. Detachment doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care deeply, but you stop trying to control what's not yours to control. It means you put in your best effort and then let go of the need to manipulate the outcome. It means accepting life as it is, not as you insist it should be. The need for control often stems from fear. Fear of uncertainty, fear of failure, fear of loss. When we try to control everything, we're often trying to protect ourselves from pain. But ironically, this very need for control that creates more suffering. Because the more you resist what's happening, the more tension you create. The more you grasp at people or outcomes, the more they slip away. Control is an illusion. Chasing it can become a trap. Detachment invites peace. When you learn to release your grip, you give life permission to unfold naturally. You stop trying to swim against the current and instead begin to move with it. Doesn't mean you give up or become passive. It means you redirect your energy toward what you can influence: your actions, your mindset, your responses, your attitude. These are the areas where your power lies, are the levers you can actually pull. By focusing on your inner world, rather than obsessing over the outer one, you become more balanced. You learn to say, "This is not within my control, how I respond is." That single shift in perspective is empowering. It frees you from the burden of trying to manage everything. It helps you stay calm in situations that once would have triggered frustration or fear. Detachment also deepens emotional resilience. You stop basing your peace on conditions. You are no longer happy only when things go your way. Instead, you find peace even when they don't. You understand that life will ebb and flow, that not every door will open, that not every plan will go as expected, and that's okay. Because your sense of stability doesn't come from the outside anymore. It comes from within. Mindset doesn't mean you're cold or disconnected. In fact, it allows you to love more purely, to work more freely, and to live more fully. Because your joy isn't chained to fragile outcomes. You're present, you're engaged, but you're not enslaved by expectations. Letting go is not weakness, it's strength. It's the strength to trust life, to trust the process, and to trust yourself to handle whatever comes. When you stop trying to control everything, you begin to feel a new kind of freedom, one that calms your mind, softens your heart, and opens you up to life as it truly is: uncertain, imperfect, and yet profoundly beautiful. In moments of stress, conflict, or emotional intensity, our natural tendency is to react. Reacting is fast, it's automatic, it's driven by emotion, impulse, and often unconscious programming. It bypasses logic and skips over reflection. You feel something, anger, fear, frustration, and before you even realize it, you've said something sharp, made a rash decision, or taken an action you later regret. Reactions come from the survival part of your brain, the part that's trying to defend, protect, preserve, often at any cost. But responding is different. Responding is thoughtful. It requires space between the stimulus and your behavior. It means you've taken a breath, assessed the situation, observed your emotions, and made a conscious choice about how to proceed. In short, responding comes from a place of clarity, not chaos. It allows you to stay grounded even when the situation is emotionally charged. Distinction between reacting and responding is a hallmark of mental maturity and calmness. People who remain composed in stressful moments aren't necessarily born that way. They've trained themselves to pause, learned how to stay aware of their emotions without letting those emotions take control. They've developed the discipline to sit with discomfort long enough to make a better choice. When you respond, rather than react. You take ownership of your behavior. You step out of the role of victim, someone who is simply being tossed around by circumstances, and into the role of creator. You become someone who shapes situations with intention rather than someone who is constantly shaped by them. This ability to respond wisely transforms not only your inner world, but your relationships, your work, and your overall sense of stability. Consider how this plays out in everyday life. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Your instinct might be to honk, curse, or escalate the situation. But what does that reaction actually achieve? Nothing meaningful, just more stress. But if you take a breath and choose not to engage, you keep your peace intact. Or think about a heated argument with a loved one. Reacting in anger might damage the relationship. But pausing, listening, and then responding with empathy might create connection instead of conflict. This approach also applies to internal struggles. When you feel overwhelmed by anxiety or fear, reacting might mean running from the feeling, suppressing it, or spiraling into worry. Responding, on the other hand, means acknowledging the emotion, understanding its message, and choosing how to move forward. You're not denying the emotion. You're not letting it dictate your actions either. Learning to respond instead of react takes practice. It begins with awareness, the ability to notice your triggers and pause before engaging. It requires emotional regulation, skill of calming yourself in the moment. And it demands intention, a clear understanding of who you want to be and how you want to show up, regardless of external circumstances. Over time, this shift becomes a superpower, allows you to be the calmest person in the room, the one who de-escalates instead of inflames, the one who brings reason to chaos. You begin to notice how much energy you save, how much regret you avoid, and how much more peaceful your life becomes. Not because the world changed, but because you did. Your mind is constantly talking to you. All day long, you engage in an ongoing internal conversation. A stream of thoughts, beliefs, assumptions, and judgments. This inner dialogue shapes how you interpret the world, how you perceive yourself, and how you respond to every situation that comes your way. If your inner voice is harsh, negative, or self-defeating, it becomes nearly impossible to remain calm in the face of adversity. But when your inner voice is kind, balanced, and empowering, it becomes your greatest ally in creating inner peace. Most people don't even realize the impact of their internal monologue. They speak to themselves in ways they would never speak to a friend. They catastrophize, overthink, blame, and criticize themselves relentlessly. When something goes wrong, the voice says, "You always mess things up." When plans change unexpectedly, it screams, "This is a disaster." When someone says something hurtful, it whispers, "Maybe they're right about you." These thoughts may feel automatic, but over time, they become the mental lens through which you experience life. Shifting your inner dialogue begins with awareness, recognizing what you're saying to yourself and how often those words feed your stress, anxiety, and emotional volatility. You cannot stay calm if your mind is constantly waging war against you. But once you become aware, you have a choice. You can interrupt that narrative. You can rewrite it. Doesn't mean lying to yourself or pretending everything is fine. It means choosing thoughts that are grounded in truth, but also in compassion and perspective. For example, instead of saying, "I can't handle this," you learn to say, "This is difficult, but I can take it one step at a time." Instead of, "Nothing ever goes my way," you might say, "This setback is frustrating, not the end." These shifts may seem small, but they carry tremendous power. They change how you feel, and how you feel changes how you act. Reframing your inner dialogue also means learning to talk to yourself the way a supportive friend or wise mentor would. When you make a mistake, instead of berating yourself, you offer understanding. "I made a mistake, but I'm learning." When you feel overwhelmed, you comfort yourself. "It's okay to feel this way. I'll get through it." These kinds of messages help regulate your nervous system. They bring you back into a calm, centered state where you're better able to cope, make decisions, and engage with the world in a healthy way. This mental reprogramming takes time, It's not about forcing positivity or ignoring pain. About building a relationship with yourself that is rooted in patience, resilience, and self-respect. When your inner dialogue becomes constructive instead of destructive, your entire experience of life begins to change. Challenges no longer feel like personal attacks. Mistakes become opportunities. Delays become pauses, not punishments. Your mind can be a storm, or it can be a sanctuary. Difference lies in the words you speak to yourself when no one else is listening. And when you start to fill that space with calm, reasonable, and affirming language, you build a foundation of inner stability that no external situation can easily shake. A calm mind is not just the result of peace around you, the result of peace within you. And that peace begins with the way you speak to yourself. Calm is not a one-time achievement or a state you stumble into by luck. It is a discipline, a conscious decision, and above all, a practice that must be cultivated daily. Much like physical fitness, mental calmness cannot be maintained without consistent effort. You wouldn't expect to be strong and healthy if you exercised only once a month. Same logic applies to your emotional and mental resilience. If you want to remain calm in every situation, you must train for it regularly, intentionally, and patiently. Making calm a daily practice means creating space each day to ground yourself, to reset, to breathe, and to tune into your inner world. It means prioritizing stillness even when your schedule is packed. Easy to get caught in the rush of responsibilities and distractions. But those are the very moments when calm is most needed. It doesn't require hours of solitude or silence. Even a few mindful minutes can shift your entire mental state. Start your day with intention. Before diving into emails, news, or social media, take a moment to center yourself. This could be through meditation, journaling, breath work, prayer, a morning walk, or simply sitting in quiet awareness. How you begin your morning sets the tone for your entire day. When you start from a place of calm, you're less likely to be thrown off by stressors that inevitably arise. Throughout the day, insert brief pauses, check in with yourself. How are you feeling? Are your shoulders tense? Is your mind racing? Use these moments not to judge yourself, but to reset. A few slow, conscious breaths can bring you back to equilibrium. A stretch, a quiet moment of reflection, or even stepping away from your screen for a short break can make all the difference. The key is consistency. Calm becomes more accessible not because life becomes easier, but because your mind becomes more trained. Also pay attention to the environments and habits you're feeding your nervous system. What are you consuming? What kind of conversations are you having? What are your routines before bed? A calm life is supported by calm rituals. Turn off unnecessary noise when possible, both digital and emotional. Choose media that nourishes rather than agitates. Design evening habits that help you wind down rather than overstimulate your senses. Your external world shapes your internal one, so craft it thoughtfully. Moreover, making calm a daily practice also involves becoming aware of how you process emotions. Don't suppress stress or anger. Observe it. Let it move through you without letting it control you. Emotional maturity comes from giving yourself space to feel, while also building the tools to self-regulate. The ability doesn't appear magically. It is developed little by little in moments of daily intention and mindful choice. And just like any practice, some days will feel easy, others will feel difficult. That's normal. The goal is not to be perfect. It's to be persistent. With time, the habits you build begin to rewire your nervous system. You become more patient, more observant, less reactive. You begin to notice that situations which once triggered anxiety or anger no longer have the same grip. This is not because life has changed. It's because you have trained your mind to return to calm, not just occasionally, but habitually. Calm becomes not just something you seek, but something you live. In a world that often feels chaotic, unpredictable, and demanding, is no longer a luxury. It's a necessity. But remember, calm doesn't mean the absence of storms. It means learning to stand steady within them. It means knowing how to return to yourself, how to breathe through discomfort, and how to choose your response rather than be ruled by reaction. Training your mind to be calm in every situation is not about becoming emotionless or detached from life. It's about becoming deeply present, deeply aware, and deeply grounded. It's about learning to navigate challenges with clarity instead of confusion, with composure instead of panic. So let this be your commitment, not just to moments of peace, but to a lifestyle of calm. Every breath be a reminder of your control. Let every pause be an act of strength. And let your calm become a quiet power that transforms not only your world, but the world around you.